Hello, welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I'm pleased to have with me on the show my good friend Autumn Edwards. Welcome to the show again, Autumn.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me.
As always happy to have you on the show, Autumn. And Autumn and I watched a bunch of horror movies, and then we thought, how can we theme these? We actually changed the name of this episode a couple times because first it was going to be underrated, and then we watched one of them and we're like, oh no, this is actually overrated. So that got changed. So now we decided it's international horror movies. Basically, we just wanted to watch a bunch of horror movies because it's that time of
Mhm.
year. We're in fall. By the time this airs, we'll definitely be in fall because I think this is airing actually around right on Halloween. So we will be just in time for the spooky season. And so we're going to talk about four international horror movies. Three out of the four are actually really good. One, we'll see, you see for yourself. Um, and we each picked two. I'm to blame for one of these losers, but Autumn, as always, picked two good ones. But we'll just kick it off right here with our first movie, which is Martyrs from 2008, directed by Pascal Laugier, probably butchering that as I always do with French names. It's a 2008 French horror film written and directed by Pascal. It's set out though in the 80s, and it follows a young woman who was extremely abused as a child, basically kidnapped and abused, who is seeking revenge against the people who tortured her as a child. Her best friend, who she meets at kind of like an orphanage when we see in the early scenes, is assisting her in her revenge. Um, I kind of feel like that's all I want to say about it because otherwise it'll give away too much. But I will warn viewers a couple of things. Although you'll see a lot online about how this movie is so graphic and so disturbing and so upsetting. We didn't find it that much, but we're not good judges, Autumn and I, because we're totally like
Desensitized to everything.
yes, yes. I feel like almost yes. That's it. Thank you. That's exactly right. We were not horrified. I mean, I was like reading these reviews, Autumn, this morning. It wasn't even reviews. I was just reading articles about it, and they were like talking about people passing out in the theaters and someone vomiting. And some critics said that they couldn't sleep for months after they saw it. I mean, like legit critics who you think
Oh,
would see it a
come
lot.
on.
I slept fine the night I saw this, in fact, and I generally don't sleep well. What I will say about this movie is it starts off very promisingly. I thought it was a revenge thriller because that's how it's labeled in a lot of things. And I thought, cool, these two gals are going to get revenge against these guys or people that torture children, and it's going to be this great revenge thriller. And that's not really where it goes. It kind of starts that way. And I would say the second half for me felt a lot more like torture porn. It's essentially just one woman in primarily being tortured for like 30, 40 minutes at least. And so if that's your kind of thing, you might like this movie. It's not my thing. For multiple reasons. It's not as much because I find it upsetting, although I don't love it. It's mostly I find torture porn boring. To me, there's
Hmm.
just not really a lot happening in the writing in this film, particularly in that second half. Apparently, a lot of critics disagreed with me. It's been on lists. Rolling Stone and IGN put it as one of the top horror movies of the 21st century. More power to them if they got anything out of it. Curious what you had to say, even though I already know because we watched it together.
I disagree with those critics, first of all. Did not find it nearly as upsetting as apparently a lot of people, and I don't know if that speaks more to me or to them or what have you. But like you said, a lot of it is kind of just torture porn. But not even in, a lot of movies that do that, they're at least more creative with it. Like, I know maybe this is kind of a low, blow criticism here, but I'm like, look, if you're gonna do that, at least make it compelling to watch. Like, make it, feels so different. Like, oh, I can't look away. It's like this awful attraction to these interesting ways to harm a person. But it's honestly just a lot of very basic, like literally just punching, slapping, like feeding her slop kind of thing. It's just not very creative at all. And I found that really kind of boring, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm surprised to see, like, a lot of people said they got a great deal out of this movie thematically. I don't see it. To me, it kind of feels like a one-trick pony. It doesn't have a lot to say. Like, it kind of just beats on this one thing the whole time, and the revelation at the end is like, all right, well, okay. You kind of just shrug your shoulders and you move on.
Hmm.
So I totally agree with you. I found it really underwhelming, which was, disappointing because it's got a great reputation, and I was just
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
shocked.
The reviews are tremendous for it. And that's unusual for horror because I feel like
Hmm.
critics are a little pickier than they are. Like if it was like a, I don't know, an Oscar bait drama, I'd be like, okay, well, a lot of people liked it, but they always like
Hmm.
these kind of movies. But with horror, I do feel like critics are a little pickier.
Yeah.
And so, especially for this particular time period. So, I think both of the actresses are quite good.
Hmm.
And I had no problem with the acting. I just don't think, particularly in that second half, the one gal's given a whole lot to do other than suffer.
Yeah.
You could say things, oh, well, the same thing happened in Joan of Arc, but I would say there's a lot
Hmm.
more going on there. And there
Yeah.
is an element of that in France, obviously, with the obsession with Joan of Arc and the obsession with martyrdom. That's the name of the movie. But Joan of Arc was tortured for a cause. In this movie, there's no apparent reason for anything that's actually happening. There is a reason, but it's kind of silly, like you said. To me, it's
Hmm.
very one trick pony. So,
I'll say
not my
to
favorite.
its credit, the first 30 minutes or 40 minutes maybe are really compelling. Like I did find it super interesting right off the bat.
Hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
starts off very strong, and then it's just kind of once the torture part begins, it really just goes off a cliff for me.
Oh yeah, that opening shot. And in fact, I turned to you. I said, "Oh, here we go," because it doesn't have a setup. It doesn't take its time. It just starts with this girl running, and you're just
Hmm.
like, "Oh, okay, we're going. We're in it." I thought this
Hmm.
is exciting, and it's not a very long movie. So the fact that I found the second half kind of boring when it's under 90 minutes is not a good sign. So, I mean, I think it's worth checking out if you're a fan of this type of genre of horror. Some people will be disturbed by the graphic. I was reading some articles about online. They used a lot of practical effects, and in fact, a guy who did a lot of the body horror effects, died before the movie came out. And they did a good job. They didn't just
Hmm.
use CGI, but again, that's not enough for me to recommend the movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so I think you have the next one.
Yep. So next we'll be discussing Angel Dust, which is a 1994 film directed and written by Gakuryu Ishii. Angel Dust is a very stylishly executed cat and mouse procedural about a police psychologist who's searching for the perpetrator behind a series of bizarre killings. Every Monday night at 6 o'clock on the crowded Yamanote subway line in Tokyo, a woman is murdered and just dropping dead without any warning. Setsuko is a police psychologist who specializes in understanding the minds of abnormal criminals, and she's recruited for the case, and it's not long before she begins to suspect that the killer may be someone closely tied to her past. And I won't really reveal much more than that, because it is a procedural and a mystery. I will preface this too with saying that this is the least horror of any of the movies we're going to discuss today. I think I remembered it being a little bit more in the horror when I recommended it, but it's still a fantastic movie nonetheless, and it's super, super compelling to me. It's just leans a little bit more psychological thriller. So I'd love to hear what you think of it.
When you picked this for horror, and then like halfway through the movie, I looked at you and I said, "Autumn, I don't think this is a horror movie. It does feel more like a
It's got
psychological
elements.
thriller."
It's got elements, though.
Yeah, yeah, you could say that about a lot of psychological thrillers, I suppose. No, but it made me laugh because it reminded me of an episode years ago that Brian and I did, where we did a whole episode on samurai movies, and he picked two and I picked two, and one of the ones he picked as we were watching it, I actually think I picked one too that it was one of those things where we remembered the movies differently, and one of the movies we
Mhm.
watched had no samurai in it at all. It was like there were swords, but they weren't samurai. And so as we were watching it a second time, we're like, oh no, uh, there's no actual samurai in this. And then we decided to keep it anyway because it was just such a fantastic movie. So I think it's fine. Just know, like, if you're a horror fan, but I think it's dark. It's a serial killer movie. No, I really liked this one. I think I didn't like it as much as you because I figured out the who done it part pretty early, but anyone would that's really watching this that has
Mhm.
half a brain. It's not really about the who done it part as much as why they did it and how
Mhm.
she's going to kind of unravel or how she's going to deal with this whole situation, the main lead.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of the more like the cat and mouse part is
Yeah.
what's really more
If
interesting.
you're
And
looking at it as a mystery, you'll be disappointed because
right.
it's forecast pretty heavily and then pretty much confirmed, like long before the movie ends, who's doing it. But like you said, it's not so much about figuring that out as
Hmm.
like, the investment that you as the audience have like in the relationship between Setsuko and the perpetrator. It's a very like, I think, compelling movie because of that social dynamic and the way it's a lot like Silence of the Lambs, which
I
came
was
three
actually going to
years
bring up
prior.
Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah, I mean
actually.
that's
Yeah.
for sure an influence, right? Like the police, woman who gets too close to the perpetrator and ends up in trouble. It's certainly like following that formula, but it's doing a lot of really interesting things on its own too. That apart from that, I think one thing that's really great about it is the way it centers and puts in the foreground the isolation and loneliness that people were feeling like towards the turn of the century. I think especially like in Japan after the economic bubble had burst and people are starting to really suffer from the effects of that. And you've got, millions and millions of people in a city like Tokyo, but everybody's feeling isolated, everybody's feeling lonely. It's kind of just like the atomization of people, like, and the contradictions that come with being in a city of millions, but still feeling so alone. I think it pushes that aspect really, really well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed watching it with you, which was a lot of fun. It was my first viewing of it. You'd seen it before, but obviously
Hmm.
had different memories of it. That's kind of the fun thing when you watch movies, though, is you as you age or you're at a different time in your life, like you can, I mean, I taped a show earlier today with a friend where I talked about a movie that I hadn't seen since college, and and I still loved the movie, but I had different thoughts of it, now. And sometimes you can do that even having only seen it 3 years ago or whatever, so it's an interesting, I love that about film. It changes with you as you change. A good film still remains relevant, but your
Hmm.
perspective of it changes. And one thing, you've really introduced me to the films of, I always call him the new Kurosawa because I can't say his first name. But, this film, in a way, I think reminded me a lot of Cure and Pulse. It has that kind of psychological thriller mystery, but a
Hmm.
lot of it is like really has to do with what's going on in people's brains more than it
Hmm.
like physical things. It's like spiritual, mental, more than it is any sort of physicality. And this one definitely has a lot of aspects of that.
I think it's definitely an influence on Kurosawa. I think it's one that's kind of been slept on because it's caught up in a lot of issues that are preventing it from being like newly issued on a Blu-ray or whatever. But it is available. I think it's like on Internet Archive or something. Like you can still find this, and I definitely recommend seeking it out because it is great. Not only do I find the story very compelling, like I said, but the cinematography, I think, is one of the greatest strengths of this film. I think it's gorgeous to look at, even on like the 480p, quality version that we have. It's just beautifully shot. The colors are so vivid, the blocking is so great. Like it just looks phenomenal. And I really, really hope that we get a higher quality version someday because you can just see like this is a gorgeous, gorgeous film.
Well, hopefully, whether it's Arrow or Criterion or someone else would put out a Blu-ray of it. That would be great to see. Have you seen many other films by this director?
I've seen several, yeah. I can recommend this director for sure, absolutely. He's got a lot really fun ones. He did one called Crazy Thunder Road, which is kind of like proto Mad Max. It really focuses on like the, growing bike scene in Japan, like with motorbikes, and they're all like kitting them out in crazy ways and, doing these crazy like stunts and things like that. There's one called First City, which is just really like one super long punk music video where you have all these bands and they're just like rebelling against the system and the police are coming in trying to shut them down and they're just like fighting them and one guy like pulls a cymbal off his drum set and throws it and decapitates a policeman. It's super fun. This director is really, really great. He's got a lot of punk influence, which is something
Hmm.
that I really like about him. So definitely recommend.
Very cool. Would you say Angel Dust is probably his best film that you've seen?
I
Most
think
mature
in
work.
I think so. But I'll say like this one is very different from, like Burst City, like I just mentioned. This one's much more restrained. It's much more like traditional in some ways, right? Like and just its straightforward kind of narrative. But he has a lot of really fun underground sensibilities that I really like. He's done so many different movies with different stylings. There's kind of always something new with him, which I really enjoy.
Great. Well, and speaking of movies that are visually compelling, I think the next one that you're going to introduce is my favorite visually of the four
hmm
films we saw.
Yeah, this one is a gorgeous movie for sure. It's called The Ghost of Yotsuya. It came out in 1959. Be aware, there were two films called The Ghost of Yotsuya that came out in that same year. This one we're going to be discussing is directed by Nobuo Nakagawa. So there is another one that came out, and I have seen that other one, and I can wholeheartedly recommend it as well. But just be aware of which one we're discussing right now. So The Ghost of Yotsuya is an adaptation of a very popular kabuki ghost story. It's a beautifully shot period piece of melodrama and vengeance. The story follows Iemon, a ronin struggling through life due to a lack of social standing. Basically, he begs a man to marry his daughter, is refused, and then he slays him and his companion. He has a low-life friend named Naosuke who witnesses it, and the two conspire to convince that man's daughter, Oiwa, and her sister to marry them. They do, and a lot of time passes, and nobody's all that happy with the outcome. And, the two sisters keep begging them to get revenge on the guy that Iemon and Naosuke had pinned the murder on because they weren't caught. They pinned it on another criminal. But then Iemon basically gets frustrated with his life and begins to court the daughter of a nobleman. He eventually poisons his wife Oiwa, disposes of her body, but before she dies, Oiwa swears revenge, and she soon returns to keep her promise. It's a super fun, supernatural ghost story, of revenge. A lot like, many other great Japanese films that follow women getting revenge, like Onibaba or Kuroneko. I just love it when women, get their due and they come back and they, kill the people that wrong them. I just think that's fun time. But like
A
you
good time
said,
at the movies.
for sure. It's what I look for. But it's a beautifully, beautifully shot film. Like you
Hmm.
said, the colors are amazing. The blocking is super solid. You can kind of feel the kabuki roots in this, especially in the beginning, how it's shot. It does almost feel like a stage play.
Yeah.
But then as Oiwa comes back as a ghost later, things switch up dramatically. Like the visual presentation changes quite a bit and it becomes super fun. There's lots of really brilliant hues of red and green thrown in there. The lighting gets more intense. There's a lot more camera movement, Dutch angles, things like that. It's a very dynamic film. It's super, super fun. I would love to
Yeah.
hear what you thought.
Oh no, I loved this one. I think you know that. This one is, and one way people could distinguish. This one's available on Criterion Channel, so if you have that one, I think the other one is not. I think
I don't
the
think
other
so.
movie with the exact same title that's also Japanese, also released the same year, which kind of blows. I think in Americans' minds, we're like, how could that happen? But it happened. It is also a common theme, as you mentioned. I really liked this movie. I like how wicked, it gets at the end with the ghost coming back. And I love that that's such a common theme in Japanese movies.
Hmm
One of the things I love about 50s, I mean, I love this period of Japanese film, but like the lack of, I like there's a few films that immediately came to mind when I was watching this, Gates of Hell and An Actor's Revenge, of
hmm
Japanese films that are not quote unquote realistic looking.
hmm
They have, as you mentioned, this theatrical. It actually reminds me a lot of the films of Powell and Pressburger, like A Black
hmm
Narcissus or something, where it's not supposed to look realistic. It's obviously shot on like a soundstage or with unrealistic colors and lighting. It's very theatrical, but it's not like watching a play either. It's still cinematic, and I
hmm
like that look. I like a really stylized look to a film because we're losing that in so much modern cinema. I mean, we have stylized movies like superhero movies, but even those, they try to make them look quote unquote realistic, like they're in
Yeah.
the present day. I like stuff that doesn't look Like, I don't go to the movies to see things that look like just the world around me, right? I go
Right.
to the
I know
movies to
I'm
be
not watching a
transported.
documentary. Okay, show me something that looks compelling. Show me
Right.
something that looks fantastic, right?
Yeah, it's why I love the Technicolor period. It's like
Hmm.
colors don't look like that even in real life. That's what I love about it. And like I love the look of this film that it's not natural or realistic. And I thought the performances were great. The guys are just super slimy. I did a little reading
Hmm.
on the two versions, and apparently a lot of people feel like the guys are worse in this version.
Oh,
So
for
maybe that's why
sure.
it's
I
more,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like in a way, then she deserves her revenge even more, right? Because
Hmm.
the guys are such dirtbags in this movie, that they really kind of deserve everything he gets to him. And she doesn't come out. She kind of just drives him crazy, right, haunting him. Which I love
Hmm.
a good ghost story too. And it's one of the things I found so disappointing about Martyrs. When you set up a thing with a woman being tortured or wrong, like it's just a lot more satisfying in the second half, even if she ends up dying or if she can't come back from the dead or whatever, if she gets a little bit of revenge, and that doesn't really happen in Martyrs in the way you would hope. So it's much
Hmm.
more satisfying to see. And both of the main guys in this are just real dirtbags, and
They
so
are. They're awful.
yeah, so you want to see them get their due.
Yeah,
I think
no,
that's
it's
fun.
so fun to watch him be driven mad gradually. Like the way that they keep upping the stakes and making, the hauntings more and more like intense. It's just so fun. I love it. Like it really it's not that the first half is slow at all. I think it's very well paced and measured. But once the haunting really begins, things start ramping up very quickly and it just becomes super, super fun. Like it's so unique and I don't know, there's so many fantastic images of it too. The makeup is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Like the poison that Iemon uses actually like disfigures Oiwa significantly. And it just looks amazing what they did with her. Like
Oh yeah,
I
the
was
makeup looks great. Her face is like melting part of it
yeah.
off, and it
I was
looks
like, wow,
really
for the
cool.
50s, I know it's late 50s, but this seems like they were really kind of pushing to the limit of what they would be allowed to do, like in a
Hmm.
studio system at that time. It's super,
Yeah.
super fun.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites that we watch. Actually, I would say this was my favorite of the four films we reviewing on this episode. And again, I don't know, this period, just in terms of how the films look too.
Hmm.
I got a sweet spot in my heart for, and I wasn't born, I wasn't around in the 50s, so it's just like I just love the way films look. It's like the way my husband talks about how 50s, 60s recordings sound. Like there was just something about the equipment they're using, the cameras, the makeup, everything
Hmm.
I think just works
The
on
height
this
of the
film.
studio system, just everybody in the crew working at the top of their game.
Yeah, everything just yeah on point. So I definitely recommend this one, and it's not scary,
Hmm.
because it's still 50s, so it's not like it's not going to give you nightmares. It looks really cool. It's a fun. And this would actually be a fun one. I wouldn't say for the whole family, but it's a one that if you can't handle really super scary movies, this would be. But you still want to watch something good for Halloween, I would recommend
Spooky.
this one. Spooky. It's more
Yeah.
spooky. Yeah, it's not gonna. There's nothing that's gonna and there's nothing really psychologically that's gonna keep you up at night, unless you're a man who did your woman wrong, in which case you might have some
Don't
health stuff to
poison
work
your
out.
wife.
Don't poison your wife and treat her like crap
Hmm.
before that. And I have to say, the main guy, he's just like dumb as a rock, too. He just keeps like, once he's getting kind of haunted by her, he just keeps swinging his sword around and then like killing random people around him. So that aren't what he's trying to do, which has something in common. Actually, a good segue to our next film, which also is about stupid men. So we'll just move right into it. See that segue? That worked great. Our next movie is When Evil Lurks from 2023. This is our newest film by Demián Rugna, and this is an Argentinian horror film about two brothers. You could call them Dumb and Dumber if you want to. They have other names in the film. I think it's Pedro and Yame, but they find a demon-infected man in their village, and they try to stop the spread of the evil. And they try to stop the spread very poorly. And this was when it had got a lot of good reviews when it first came out, which was just a couple of years ago. And I remember hearing about it, and some reason I can't remember. I even think it showed here in Salem, like at Regal or something, but I just missed it for whatever reason. So I was like, oh, this will be good. Try a different, film from a different country. Latin American horror films are really underrated. They're often quite good and quite interesting. What I liked about this one is that it immediately does a really good job of setting the place. It's shot on location, kind of rural Argentina,
Hmm.
kind of a beautiful area. And a lot of the movie, and I made a comment to this about you right away, is like a lot of the movie is set during the day.
Hmm.
which is
I
very
love that.
unusual for horror movies. It's not set in the dead of night, so there's no things that go bump in the night. It's like bright and sunny out,
Hmm.
and stuff is going bad, really fast.
Hmm.
And this demon, or that infects this kind of like curse or zombie like curse on people. It's not your Night of the Living Dead type zombies, by the way, kind of infects anybody it comes into contact with in a way. And these two brothers are trying to stop it, and they seek the expertise of this woman who's supposed to be what they call a cleaner. These are someone that can come in and kind of rid people or rid the demons out of the person. But they proceed to not listen to a word she says the whole movie.
Hmm.
Which was infuriating as we're watching it. We're just like screaming, like, "Why are you
I
doing that?" Like,
know. They're literally like
literally,
told the rules and then they just proceed to
I
not
know.
follow a
One
single one of
character
them.
literally says in the movie, okay, there's 7 rules to dealing with these demons. And I was like, oh, I like a movie that has rules. And then they set them out. And usually, then, if you're in a smarter movie with smarter characters, it's not that the movie's not smart, with smarter characters, they go, oh, okay. And then these two guys go, huh. And then they just proceed to like take their guns out and shoot at anything and everything they see. I was like, oh, this could be like an American horror movie, really,
Hmm.
because like
Hmm.
they just want to shoot things. And the first thing they say is, don't shoot anything, don't use a gun. The demon spreads faster when you use a gun. So they proceed to use a gun. Then she says, don't use lights. They turn their headlights on. And you made a comment to me because we watched, and you said, like, are they just gonna like do everything basically that they said not to do?
Yeah.
Um,
No, I thought it was very fitting that like this director apparently is going to direct the next Alien installment. I'm like, yeah, when you think about the first one, who was right? Who said to just follow the rules and follow the procedure? Sigourney Weaver. If we just followed the rules that we know work, you would have been okay. But all the men decide not to, and now they reap the consequences. And same thing here. It's like the
yeah,
woman's like, hey, this is what you need to do, and they're all like, no thanks, and then they
yeah.
suffer.
Yeah, she's like, don't shoot the demon. If you shoot the guy that has the demon in him, the demon will just come out. And he's like, okay, I'm going to shoot the. I mean, yeah, it's just like Alien. It's just like when Ripley says, don't bring him into the ship. We don't know if he's been infected with anything. They said, oh, we're not going to leave him out there. He's our bro. Well,
Hmm.
you caused crap to happen, guys. And this movie's a lot like that. But I did love the look of this one. I
For
thought the
sure.
characters were interesting. I wasn't sure how I felt. I kind of had mixed feelings about the whole addition of the kid with autism and that kind of
Yeah.
theme. I wasn't sure how I felt about that being used as a horror movie ploy. It made me feel it was a little yuck, to be
Yeah.
honest. But it's not like a major part of the movie. It would be nice if there had been one smarter character. I guess there kind of was with the women, but nobody listened to her.
Hmm.
But that was, and I also like a movie that sets up like, and not only in its own village, but it has its own world. Nobody's like, oh, what? There's demons? We don't believe
Everybody
you.
knows immediately. It's great.
No, they
I love
know
it.
this is a thing, and there's
Yeah.
people, they're cleaners, like they've established that this is a world in which this is just part of the world. We know demons can happen. He even says it some way, well, that usually happens in the cities. They're not going to come to a remote place like this. I don't know why. Why do demons only go to cities? Maybe because they can
Hmm.
infect more people faster. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I like that it sets up its own logic right away.
Yeah. And another movie with fantastic makeup too. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
practical effects, like when they build the infected guy, like he looks absolutely disgusting, like
yes.
to their credit. Like it's really, really good. There's not a lot of reliance on VFX or CG here. It's a lot of practical, and they did a great job with it. I love that.
I'm guessing that's why one of the other reasons he was picked for the next Alien installment. I hope it's better
Mhm.
than Romulus. I don't have a lot of hope for it, but good for him for getting the gig. So yeah, he also did a movie called Terrified, which is supposed to be pretty good. So I'd be interested in checking that out. But
Mhm.
anyway, would you say Angel Dust was your favorite of these films? Is that your top pick?
I think that's probably my top pick. Least horror, but it has a soft, special place in my heart.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
Ghost one, of course, is my favorite. So three
So
out of the
both
four ain't
mine.
bad. 3 out of the 4 ain't bad. We have 3 recommendations, and if you want to check out Martyrs just to see some torture, go forth and conquer. So thanks for joining me, Autumn, on the show. As always, have a great day and great movies.
Bye.
trying to remember the episode years ago, which ones we picked for the samurai episode, but I think the one that Brian picked that was not a samurai movie was Lady Snowblood. I think he picked
Oh,
it because he remembered her with the
fantastic
sword.
movie.
No, great
Women getting
movie.
revenge. We
Yes,
love
another
it.
woman getting
Yeah.
revenge movie. And I think when we watched it though, in his head, it was like she remembered swords. So, and then we
Yeah.
watched it together for the show. And I said, Brian, this is not a samurai movie. We're
No.
reviewing this for the samurai episode.
Yeah.
But then we were like, it's so good though. Let's review it anyway, which is
Yeah.
kind of how I felt about Angel Dust because you were like, well, we could eliminate it. I'm like, eh. And it's adjacent. I mean, I really feel like
People
psychological
consider Silence of
thrillers
the
are
Lambs
horror.
horror, so I
Yeah,
feel like
it's
this is
psycho.
close
Yeah,
enough. I
yeah.
can let it fly.
And most
Yeah.
of these movies weren't scary, to be honest. I mean, I really
No.
wasn't scared by any of them. But,
Mm-mm.
The
Takes a lot
Ring,
to
on the
scare
other
us,
hand, which we
though.
just saw a trailer to recently, that's a scary movie that scared the
Yeah.
pants out of me. I didn't sleep for like a week after I saw The Ring,
Yeah.
the American version of that. And then I saw the Japanese version. I'm like, oh, I really can't sleep now. So there's movies that actually do scare me, but none of these were in that category. But I would say, like, um, sometimes it's the ideas of a movie that I think scare you more than
Hmm.
anything, or like how you feel like that's likely to happen to you, or you could feel like that could happen in
Absolutely.
some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why stuff like Kiyoshi Kurosawa stuff works so well. The Pulse and Cure. It's not that they're overtly, traditionally scary with like jump scares or like, ooh, what if somebody murdered you or whatever kind of thing. It just kind of creeps under your skin and like picks at all those parts of your brain
Hmm.
that just like can't rest. And he just brings up all these different things kind of festering under the surface of society already and pulls them out. And you're like, oh, you're right. That is there. That's kind of awful. I'll be thinking about that for a while. Yeah.
Right. And I think the reason the Cure comes off so much scarier than like Angel Dust to me, for instance, is in Angel Dust, he's really just targeting this one woman. And
Hmm.
it's like they had I don't know. I think because it's so obvious, whereas in Cure, it's like, well, this could kind of happen to anyone, and we really don't even know why. That's scarier, the fact
Yeah.
that you
He
could
doesn't
have.
really have a motive, like, or a strong one, at least in Cure. It's kind of just this guy's just doing this. And
Right, and that makes it scarier to me because there's
hmm
not a reason I might be targeted. I could just be targeted. Like if it seems like it could happen to you and you wouldn't even know why, that's scarier.
hmm
So,
Yeah. I do love the ending to Angel Dust too, though. Like that final shot is really, really great, I think. Like it kind of just wraps everything up in a great way when, not to spoil anything for anyone that hasn't seen it, but I really like it. It brings the whole thing to a close in a
it's
unsettling
fun.
way.
It's fun. We grouped it thematically. We were able to make a good adjustment after we were going to
Hmm.
call this episode, Brad, we were going to call it underrated. And after we watched Martyrs and didn't like it, well, we can't call it underrated now because it's definitely
Yeah.
overrated. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like, if I'm
yeah,
gonna watch torture porn, at least the Saw movie. I haven't seen anything but the first one, but I'm like, at least those contraptions are more creative than just punching a lady a bunch, I guess,
yeah, punching her in the
Or
stomach
like
repeatedly.
Audition, there's some great torture in Audition. Fantastic movie again about women getting revenge. That torture is more interesting, like, and then the way she
Well,
tortures
and the
people, I'm
motive, I think,
like,
in Martyrs is so disappointing. Once you finally find at the
yeah,
very end, I was like, really? That's it? That's the reason you did this to this woman? Like,
I
that's
know
not
it
even
feels so
interesting.
dumb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that was the biggest thing. Like if there had been some weird, I mean, if there had been some more interesting reason for it all, but then when that was a real letdown. So it's interesting though, like when you look online, it's like the reviews for it are pretty tremendous. I mean, it was mixed when it came out, but it was mostly mixed not for the reasons we didn't like it. It was mostly people that thought it was too disgusting or too graphic, and that apparently the French government gave it an 18 plus rating, and the filmmaker was really ticked about that, so it made
I
it
would
hard for
be.
people to see it.
Yeah.
But I
You
was
know,
like,
I feel like a lot of the really like rave reviews are from people that love like elevated horror, as it were, because it's like, oh yeah,
artier.
this movie's clearly trying to get at something beyond just like a generic slasher film would or whatever. But does it succeed? I don't think so at all. No, I think it's like it's trying for that, but it never comes close. There's nothing deeper
Yeah.
to it whatsoever.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get at some stuff with like Catholicism and spirituality and the idea of a sainthood or the idea of being tortured, again, getting back to Christianity. Again, though, the lack of vision in it of what
Hmm.
they were trying to accomplish just made it kind of hard to watch it and
Yeah, the
stomach
whole
it.
time I'm like, I could just watch, Joan of Arc, and that's a
Right.
much better movie.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. All the
yeah,
versions, in fact, many of
right,
them, or not
yeah.
all of them, but not that Luc Besson one. That one's terrible. But the other earlier versions are all better than this movie and less torture, or
Mhm.
less graphic parts.